Imagine walking 21 miles to and from work. A complaint against the governor is dismissed. And Mayor Duggan's first year. Stay put. My Week starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hi there and welcome to My Week. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. If you were tempted to complain about the snowstorm in your commute this week, well, one man's story probably stopped you cold. Detroiter James Robertson's 21-mile walk to work every day is making national news, and it's proof that there's something very wrong with the Detroit area's public transit system. Coming up, there has been an outpouring of financial help for James, but what kind of help is there for our dysfunctional transit policy? We will take a look. Plus, the Secretary of State dismisses a complaint filed against Governor Snyder for using his State of the State speech to push for a yes vote on a ballot proposal. And year one in the books for Mayor Mike Duggan. What were the high points and what are the challenges ahead? It is all coming up for you on My Week. But we do start with James Robertson's story. It's not just the talk of Detroit, it's the talk of the nation. He's 56 years old. He lives in Detroit, takes a bus and then walks 21 miles to get back and forth from his job in Rochester Hills. He does it every day, and he's never missed a day of work. Media outlets all over the country have reported on Robertson's story, and now crowdfunding efforts have raised nearly $240,000 for this man. Here's a look at Robertson's story, courtesy of Ryan Garza at the Detroit Free Press.
It's extremely tiring. There's no question about it. But I think it's also the will to do it. By the time Friday comes, you're mentally and physically drained. You know, you feel like you're down and out. And you gotta like pull something extra out of you. I can show that I can do it. I can survive any situation that you throw at me, They said that if there's a will, there's a way. That's something I never forget. I think it's loyalty. I think it's loyalty to the job. If I can do it until they decide they don't need me anymore. I try to get home, throw my clothes off and go into bed and fall asleep, because it's not much time, about 2 hours, at least 2 hours before I have to wake up at 6 and do it again. I figure even if my situation changes, you never forget there are so many other people that are in my situation. I've said this before, no one can say I didn't pay my dues in life. No one.
It's a powerful story. So what does this say about mass transit or the lack of it in the Detroit area? We will start our discussion there with our My Week contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. When I saw this story come out in the Free Press on Sunday, I thought a couple of things came to mind. Was one, some auto companies got to jump on this and give this man a car so he can get back and forth to work. And the second was, how many other James Robertsons are there out there in this area that have to take a weird bus schedule or walk because of the transit problem, Stephen?
Well, I mean, the transit problem is sort of exhibit A here, and I think Mr. Robertson's daily trek really shows how awfully dysfunctional it has become here. I mean, you cannot get from where you live to where the jobs are. In a lot of instances, people have all kinds of crazy commutes, and his is the worst I've ever seen. But I've also heard of people riding buses for 3.5 hours both ways, or the walking that he does to try to connect the gaps in the routes. That's not uncommon. But it's not just about transit. I mean, it also goes to some other real issues here that we have in Detroit. Why does a guy who lives where he does in Detroit have to go all the way to Rochester Hills for a job that pays $10.55 an hour? That's a sign of where the economy has gone, where jobs have gone, where business has gone. And look at that wage. That's not a living wage. This is a guy, that's his only means of support. I couldn't live on $10.55 an hour. I don't know anyone else who could. There are a lot of problems here that point to things we need to start talking about and dealing with. If we expect people to take care of themselves, be self-sufficient, we have to do a better job of setting up the infrastructure to allow them to do that.
All right, you outlined a bunch of different issues that we can talk about. Nolan, I'd want to get, though, your first impressions of when you saw this story.
Well, I mean, it is just an indictment of the transportation system here. We spend a lot of money on buses in this town. We spend a lot of money on transportation, and they don't work. It's not lack of funding here. We have 2 dysfunctional bus systems already in place, and we're about to layer on a 3rd bus system with this Bus Rapid Transit Authority, and no plans as of this point to put them together, to make them sync. And you know, we've been living with this in this community for decades. Since SMART started, we've had 2 bus systems that don't mesh.
All right, so let's go back then. Let's go back a little bit and talk about how we got to this place in terms of, we know that there was urban sprawl, we know that highways were built, but why is it that Detroit, when you come here, you can't get from the airport to downtown in an easy public transit way? Are we alone in the country in terms of not having a good functioning transit system?
I don't know if we're alone. I mean, I think if you talk to people in other cities, they'll also talk about gaps in the system, the sprawl issue, and how much harder it is for people to get to jobs. To make living wages. I don't think that's unique to Detroit. What is unique to Detroit is the extent of the problem. I can't think of any other metro area that has what we have, which is basically nothing. As Nolan pointed out, we have 2 systems that can't function properly. SMART, because of the way it's structured, with the opt-outs, the huge gaps in the system, and DDOT because it's
explain the opt-outs though for people.
You have a bus system that communities can decide whether or not they're going to participate in it and pay for it. And we have these millages that come up every year, and people get to decide whether they're going to be part of it or not. And you have 40 communities in Oakland County, and I think another 20 or so in Macomb, who all say, well, we don't want to do that. And of course, that doesn't just affect the people who live in that city; it affects the entire region. And so somebody like Mr. Robertson has to walk through places where the SMART bus doesn't go.
And a number of communities have opted out for the reason that their residents, their community members, their taxpayers don't use the system. And if the system worked better, if the system were more efficient, if you could actually count on it from getting from here to there on a consistent basis, you would build a better constituency for the bus service.
Yeah.
And we've never had that here.
All right, so now talk to me a little bit about the Regional Transit Authority that it was created in 2012, but that really doesn't even have the funding behind it to have strength.
Not yet.
But that funding, they're going to be asking people for funding in 2016, and are people really going to want to open their pocketbooks to do that?
I want to be more optimistic than Nolan is being right now about it.
But Nolan is never optimistic, though. I mean, have you met him?
But I also, I think it's going to be a hard sell. People here don't believe anymore in transit, right? They don't believe that it works. They don't believe that it helps grow the economy or opportunity. And so the willingness to pull more in their minds at least, out of their pockets to pay for the RTA when they're already paying for SMART and already some people are paying for DDOT is going to be tough. Now, my understanding is that funding for RTA may supplant funding for SMART. RTA may swallow up SMART in a way that it couldn't swallow up DDOT.
And that becomes a different story. But if you're going out there and telling people or asking people to give yet another millage to support yet another
that's how
bus
people will
service
see it.
that they don't use anyway,
Yeah.
I think it's a really hard sell. The RTA should replace all the other bus systems. It should be a single bus system that is unified, meshed, so that if you get in a bus downtown, you can go anywhere in this region and know what time you're going to arrive.
Although
And do you have to say also that you make sure that there is no opt-out option for those communities?
There won't be opt-out in RTA. I
No,
do know
that's a
that.
different setup.
It will be a whole different structure. I will say that there are all kinds of regions in the country, metro areas, that have more than one system. If you go to Chicago, for instance, there are several different systems. You've got the L that everybody knows about in the city. You have Metro, which is a
But isn't it
a
all
commuter
run by the
train.
same transit authority?
It's not. They're different, but they work together is the point, and they plan things so that there aren't big gaps in the system. There is not this antagonism either between the systems or between the communities. They all get that you've got to get people where they need to go for work. I also, I lived in Maryland for a very long time. In Maryland, we had one transit system for the entire state, controlled buses, subway, light rail, and commuter trains from Washington, D.C. all the way up to Philadelphia, and from the Eastern Shore all the way to West Virginia. That worked wonderfully. I don't think you can do it any number of ways, but the way that we do it doesn't work because of the antagonism in this region between the systems.
But it's beyond that. I mean, there's no good reason that DDOT and SMART shouldn't merge, except that labor law says that if they do merge, they've got to put in place the most lucrative contracts, and that belongs to DDOT, and there's no way SMART could afford that. So I mean,
Not on the current funding model.
You've
right?
got a lot of factors working against this that have nothing to do with the needs of the people.
Yeah, but I think it goes to show that you have people like James Robertson who are out there that have to go to such extreme lengths to get to their employment. And I think that also what you raised in the beginning of the conversation is the fact that this is such a large part, even when you talk about job training and working and making sure that people can even get jobs and are trained for jobs, but where are those jobs and how can you get to them?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've been talking about lately in speeches and I'm hoping to start writing about is the sort of rural dynamic that poverty in Detroit has started to take on, and that has to do with the isolation of poverty in the city. If you live where Mr. Robertson does, that job in Rochester Hills may be the closest job that he's qualified to do and can hold down. That is not what you find generally in big cities. The whole idea of a city is that even people who don't have a lot of economic opportunity live close by to people who do, and therefore they have access to services and jobs that they wouldn't be able to necessarily provide for themselves. Detroit, that's sort of going away, and that means we have to think about it differently, attacking poverty differently. Here, you attack it the same way you would in some rural parts of Appalachia, for instance, or in the Deep South, where people are disconnected from opportunity.
Well, we know that a lot of people have stepped up and raised money for Mr. Robertson, so it will be interesting to see where his story goes from here. But the saga continues on fixing Michigan's roads. Secretary of State Ruth Johnson has ruled that Governor Snyder did not violate the law when he urged residents to vote yes on a sales tax hike on the May 5th ballot during his State of the State speech last month. Now, meanwhile, it looks like support for the proposal is dwindling a little bit, and we have several groups that are now coming forward in a concerted effort to go against this ballot proposal. But I want to talk first about this accusation that the governor used his State of the State, and it wasn't legal for him to do that, to push that ballot yes vote.
Just silly politics. I mean, that's just more gotcha politics. We're used to that in Michigan. Never had any merit. And, I don't know what did people expect, that they were going to go up to the Capitol and put him in handcuffs and march him away. to the courtroom, and it's just silly politics.
All right, so silly politics aside, now that you have these groups who are starting to roll a little bit and go against this ballot proposal, Stephen.
Well, I mean, I think I didn't expect to see much of an organized campaign against, because I think the support for it in the first place is so weak. You sort of thought the burden would be on the people who are for it. It's just another hurdle, though. I mean, I think the governor faces a real challenge getting people to vote for this. And again, I think there are a lot of people who are in the position that I keep finding myself in, which is, what do you do about this? I mean, it's really hard to make a decision to be for this because it's really awful tax policy. At the same time, our roads are in such bad shape that you feel like, well, maybe this is the best we can do, which is not a great position to be advocating for. It doesn't make you feel good.
Well, the scary part is it may be the last chance, because if it gets defeated and it gets defeated badly, this legislature is not going to go take up another kind of tax hike. The people will have spoken. What I'm seeing in this campaign is it's starting to mirror the governor's re-election campaign,
How so?
in which he's off to a very late start in trying to sell this, and he's letting the opposition
sort of define
the issue and get to voters first with their message. I am shocked that they're not up with their advertising. I mean, they fired their campaign crew they originally hired, resigned over differences with the administration, but they should be up and out there, because all you're hearing now is from the people who don't like this.
All right, Nolan, so what should that campaign look like? I'm going to put you in charge, and if you were in charge, what would that look like?
It's an extraordinarily tough sell, but the governor's got to move off this idea that he can convince people to vote for it because the roads are bad. Well, people know the roads are bad. And that didn't work last year. They didn't pressure their lawmakers to do something. In fact, they did just the opposite. He's got to sell them on the merits of a tax increase, and he's got to convince them that that's the only place he can get the money, that when he gets the money, he'll use it right, that the roads will be built to quality. He's got to address truck weights. He's got to address the things people are complaining about, and he hasn't done that so far. He keeps on, it costs you $500 when your tie rod breaks. Well, people know that.
All right, so is that like town halls for him? Is that, how do you spread that word?
I'm not sure how he'll do this. I mean, when he was campaigning 4 or 5 years ago for the job, what I asked him about how he would convince people to do things that they didn't want to do, and legislators and voters, he did talk about that sort of ground level strategy, that sort of let's have town halls in people's districts and let them see how many people support these things. I don't know that he's ever done that to the effect that he sort of laid out then, but he's certainly going to have to try it now, because the numbers suggest that this is in some trouble, and if he wants to get it, he's going to have to work real hard.
What's he waiting for?
I'm not sure. But the other question is, where's the money? Right?
Well, the road builders will put the money up.
Well, will they?
Well, they're expected to put up at least $15 million for this thing, maybe more. So, I don't think it's a funding issue. He's got business groups behind it, some, a good number.
Some, yeah.
I just think it's that sort of nonchalant attitude they took to the re-election campaign.
Well, but he ended up being re-elected, so maybe they've got something up their sleeve. Okay, turning to Detroit now. Mayor Mike Duggan has finished his first year in office. The mayor will talk about the changes over the past year when he delivers his State of the City speech next Tuesday night. Plus, he'll lay out his plans for the coming year, of course. Now, during his speech last year, the mayor vowed to improve city services. At the top of his list was getting regular trash pickup throughout the city, plus plowing neighborhood streets right after snowstorms, as a lot of people saw this week, and transforming Detroit's bus system into a more reliable and safe mode of transportation. So, does the mayor get high marks for year one? Nolan, I'm going to start with you. What's your report card looking like?
He gets an asterisk because he really wasn't in charge of everything for most of the year. I think the things he was in charge of did very well. I think in terms of maintaining his own relevance during a time when he could have been shoved into the shadows. He gets really high marks. And, you know, maintaining the confidence of the residents. I still think the residents believe they made the right choice in electing him. So I think on that scale, you've got to give him credit. But, you know, I think this year is probably the more crucial year for him. I mean, you talked about plowing the streets. Detroit schools were shut a day or two longer than most of their suburban counterparts because streets didn't get shoveled, neighborhoods weren't cleared out. So,
All right, so what's your grade, Stephen?
Yeah,
The mayor.
you know, I don't know what the grade is. I think
Oh, you guys, come on. I've got an asterisk
it's
here.
really
you know,
hard
I
to
don't
grade
know.
somebody on something that they haven't really completed. You know, as Nolan pointed out, he wasn't in charge of the entire city for a very long time. I mean, I think you can look at specific areas and say, you're starting to see the difference between this administration and past ones. I think one is the district representation system that he's got going. He's got these district managers, and then each of the 7 city council districts working really closely with the council members, but also really connecting with people in the community and addressing the concerns they have. If you go to these meetings that they have in these districts, people stand up and talk about the district manager. That's somebody that they know. And you know, the mayor saying, well, yeah, call that person and we'll get on this problem. I think that's a really, really positive development. But you know, there are so many other problems in the city, you know, that we haven't even started to see him tackle yet. It's hard to give him a grade before.
Well,
he has a chance
then I
to
don't
do
think you give him an overall grade. Then I think you can start to grade some of the things he's had control over. But I think, to your point of the district managers, I think you can give him an A for the fact that he has had a good relationship with city council. Now you can say that they haven't had a lot on their plate, or they haven't been in charge of things. But the fact that he's brought some relationship stability there to City Hall that they haven't had in a long time is notable.
sure, I mean, it's good to have them working together instead of fighting. I think if you were going to give him credit for anything, it's this sense of motion in the city. And that's not something that we've always had in Detroit. So, you know, the fact that people believe that things might be going in a better direction is as good a development as you could ask for.
All right, what about blight? Because that has been a huge part of the mayor's first year in office, and talking about targeting certain neighborhoods that have been on the tipping point and making sure that people can get into some homes or auction off some homes there, and giving that incentive money so people can rehab. How do you feel that that's worked so far, Stephen?
I mean, I think that you can grade. I think he gets a B-, maybe C+ for it. The effort has been extraordinary. I think identifying the neighborhoods that are on that brink and trying to, you know, get control of the houses that are in trouble and give them to people who will take care of them. I think they've done a wonderful job with that. The problem there has been values in the city you know, are still so low that the people who are taking these houses are having a hard time financing the renovation and upkeep of them. And so not as many of them have closed as they should, and not as many of them have been fixed up. You know, in terms of other kinds of blight programs, I mean, they are still targeting, you know, these hardest hit neighborhoods with federal money to tear down houses, and that seems to be going well. But there are so many other neighborhoods that don't fall into that category, and the city doesn't have money to tear down houses outside of those federal areas, and nobody knows where that money will come from. So again, it's, you know, it's that asterisk waiting to see what else can develop.
I like the fact that they're trying to save as many houses as possible instead of just tearing down everything. You can't tear down the whole city.
Right.
And so, you know, trying to identify houses that are fit to be rehabbed and get them in the hands of people who might do something with them. That's a good approach. I think that's an innovative approach.
Now, granted, he hasn't been in charge of the police and fire department for very long, but what about public safety? What about the fact, are residents feeling safer, and does that come back onto the mayor?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask James Craig, the police chief, he will say that people tell him all the time how much better they feel about how things are going in the city. But of course, if you look at the rates of crime, not the raw numbers. The raw numbers are down, but the rates are not coming down as much because we're continue to lose population. I think there are parts of the city that absolutely feel safer, and people have noticed that. But it's still a really violent place and a really dangerous place. And
Still too many children dying in this city.
Absolutely.
I mean, we had 2 last week, just random incidents. But whether it's some kid playing with a gun that shoots another kid or a drive-by shooter, children are dying in this city.
Yeah.
And
that has
it's
not
one of the
changed.
most. It's one of the deadliest places in the nation, if not the deadliest place in the nation for children.
All right, we have about 40 seconds left. I want to ask each of you, now in this next year, this will be a big year for the mayor. What is the most important thing do you think he needs to concentrate on, Nolan?
He's got to hang on to his population. He's got to stabilize the population. You can't keep fighting against an eroding population base.
All right.
I would say population and schools. He's got a big test on schools coming up. He's got to get control of that.
He won't play on schools.
And do something.
All right, we'll see if he talks about that, and we'll be talking about it next week. And that is going to do it for My Week. Thanks so much for joining us. We will continue our conversation online right after the show, so go to myweek.org for a little extra segment that you're not going to see on TV. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter during the week, so make sure you connect with us there. I'm Christy McDonald. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, we will see you next week. Take care.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.